All right, welcome to BopxTheBase. I'm your host Vic. Today I don't have my co-host Josh with me. He's taking a sick day, but I have guest star Azad Earl joining me, who I consider to be draft guru on Twitter. He goes by MLB draft analyst, I believe is what your bio reads, if I'm not mistaken. But if you want, to introduce yourself for the viewers at home who might not know who you are.
For sure. Yeah, my name's Azad. I've been posting on Twitter, I think the past three or four drafts, kind of doing a lot of data-driven stuff, mostly just kind of video data evaluations, mixing in-person, looks when I can. Um, so that's kind of my bread and butter.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome. Have you been like, I mean, I know we were talking over DM a little bit, but have you like seen any of the current draft class in person this year a lot or not really?
Mhm. Yeah, I think I've seen of the players in my top 100, I want to say 75 or 80 of them. So I've seen a good bit.
Yeah. So I mean, that's pretty cool, honestly, like that you've seen them in person and stuff.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like I was telling you, like somebody who, I mean, I almost want to consider you a scout because I mean, if you're there in person, I think you can qualify as one, no?
Oh, I'll keep telling myself that.
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of wanted to start off this episode, and obviously it's going to be very draft heavy, of course. But I wanted to kind of ask you one kind of general question that's broken up into three parts. So,
Mhm.
what would you, if you, and for each part of this question, it would be the same kind of response, but it would be
Okay.
like one sentence to describe the entire draft, and then one sentence to describe the college portion of it, like the college class, and
Mhm.
then one sentence maybe to describe the prep class or the high school class for people that don't use the term prep.
Right. I think one sentence to describe, I guess, the whole class would just be I think middle heavy, if that makes sense. Just to kind of expand on that, I don't think the top of the draft is that great. Um, I think it's good, not great. But I think once you get kind of into that tier two, tier three, there's a lot of value kind of in that tier. I think like I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were saying it's a good year to be picking in the 15 to 30 area, because that's where a lot of the I guess attractive options are, if that makes sense. And then kind of going over to the college side, I'd really say the focus for me is on, a lot of good pitching, right? There's a lot of guys, you go from Jamie Arnold to Gage Wood, Kyson Witherspoon, all of those guys. There's not many good. I use the term good just to describe, I guess, the top of the first round
Yeah.
specifically, mid first round specifically. There's not a lot of, great college hitters in this class, which is kind of unique. Um, and then kind of jumping over to the prep side, I'd say left-handed hitting high school shortstops, which is a mouthful, but there's a lot of them, right? You look at guys like Jordan Yost, Cooper Fleming, Ryan Mitchell. You can kind of go down a list, and there's really a lot of those guys in this class.
Yeah, definitely. So you kind of like pointed it out there how it's a lot of like middle heavy in that regard, but I mean, from what I've seen anyways, like reading a lot of mock drafts, nobody seems to have a consensus 1-1 pick,
Mhm.
and it seems to be like back and forth, um the latest ones have been Kate Anderson just because he dominated the College World Series. I mean, he dominated the entire playoffs really.
Mhm.
And it's like people are like, it would just be the smartest move for them to take, the Nationals who have the 1-1 pick to take him. But then it's like Ethan Holiday, was another guy I've heard of, and apparently I heard he didn't have the greatest showing in his high school season. Like some people were deterred a little bit by his performance. Another guy like Eli Wilkes, I know in the prep class was mentioned. What do you think in general, like in your research, you've found for that 1-1
Yeah,
pick?
for sure. I think with Ethan, I mean, he had I think a really productive high school season. I think the thing that people go back to with him is the prep summer. So kind of the showcase circuit was, a little rough on him. Contact wasn't great. He wasn't really pulling velocity, which is kind of a marker, right? Just for, are you getting around on velocity? That's kind of an easy thing to say. Infer bat speed and just kind of look at a guy's spray. Um, so there was a few markers of things that he wasn't really doing that great, with on the showcase circuit, but just kind of understanding, he's a young kid. There's a lot of bat speed, there's a lot of raw power, and things like that. Kind of, can make a profile, right? But just going, kind of jumping over to Eli a little bit. He's a hit tool first guy. There's not a lot of reason to believe he'll hit for power. He'll play second base. So it's kind of a quote unquote lower variance type of guy. I think I've kind of gone back with Cole Young a little bit. Some similarities to him from 2022, I believe. And then with Cade, the shapes took a little bit of a step back, kind of in the College World Series, but he was great all year. A lot of traits. Good pitch shapes, high field to pitch. Lands the ball for strikes on a regular basis. Good body left-hander. So a lot of good things there, as well. Just for me, I'd kind of be leaning towards Cade. Just at this point in time, I think that the upside with him is pretty interesting, right? He's going to probably add another 15 pounds. He'll throw, a few ticks harder. Shapes will get better. There's kind of some usage things you can clean up there. But I'm a fan of the change up of the fastball. So
Definitely. I mean, I think also like I was impressed too what I saw in the College World Series when I believe he struck out like 7 or something like that and won the game.
mhm,
Yeah, so I mean that was pretty cool.
definitely.
Yeah, I also really have been looking at this prep class, like in terms of what they are, and there's I've been saying anyways. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like there's a lot of depth in this prep class. Maybe not
Mhm,
like a lot of upside depth, but just like it feels like when you look at the short, because a lot of them feel like shortstops. You have
yep,
JoJo Parker, you have Eli Wills, Billy Carlson, just to name a few, and maybe you can throw out a few others, and you can name Ethan Holiday, who might be a third baseman long term, but
mhm.
and he's not a shortstop, but Gavin Freed is another name. I mean, what what would you how would you evaluate this prep class compared to their counterparts at the college level? Because I feel like when you look at the college class, there are a decent amount of shortstops as well and decent amount of middle infielders as well. So I feel like how would you evaluate and compare the two classes separately?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good question. I think the prep class, you can throw guys like Josh Hammond in there as well. Josh Owens, that's a popular name. And really with the college side, it's a lot of guys who, they have their kind of pitfalls, right? You have guys like, Wahiwa Lloyd, the hit tool has some questions on it. You have a guy like Alex Lodi, same thing. You can go over to Marek Houston. I mean, he's got, power concerns, right? So there's kind of, holes to poke with a lot of the guys and just kind of looking at the preps. I mean, there's a lot more kind of, upside that you can dream on, right? A prep's flaws, you might think 2 years down the road are going to kind of resolve themselves, or you think that there's, something, that you can optimize once they get into kind of a high development, environment and things like that. So I think there's kind of cause to be more bullish on the preps, just in this one specific, or just in this class specifically.
Yeah. Is there anybody in that prep class, and maybe you can answer the same thing for college, I guess, like in those two classes that like really separate themselves in that sort of like middle infield position?
Um, Well, I'm a really big fan of two guys, Gavin Feene and Josh Hammond. I think both of them probably end up at third base. But again, those are guys who have, field a hit, a lot of power, good bat speed, good swings. Guys who are, kind of explosive. Guys who, they'll hit for power. I think they'll both be really productive players. I like them at the top of the first round. Most people like them kind of at the, mid to late first round area. Um, so those are two guys I really like, and then kind of, Alex Lodis is one from the college side that's, really attractive to me. I think he'll probably go, maybe in the comp of the second, probably in that 30 to 45 pick range if I had to guess. But I mean, he's a really great shortstop defender, a lot of power. It's plus raw, and then you know, he'll make great swing decisions. There's some chase to that, but I mean, he's swinging in zone at like 80%, so he'll bite the bullet.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it kind of also brings me to another point that I've felt throughout this, just looking at the draft and the players available, is that it doesn't feel like there's a lot of convincing college players. Like you're like, okay, I need to take that guy if I have like the top five pick because guaranteed star. It doesn't feel like that with any of them, even with like someone like, Aloy that you mentioned earlier, or we haven't mentioned him yet, but Ava Arquette, like it doesn't feel certain with them. Do you think that'll lead to teams wanting to take certain prep players instead, just because that's the player they can probably work with more?
Yeah, I would guess so. I mean, you look at kind of a guy who's kind of rushed up boards a little bit is Ike Irish, and that's kind of just teams looking for good, safe quote unquote college option. Which I mean, typically there's a few of them, right? Kind of going back to past classes. But yeah, I would definitely assume specifically in the first, second round that it'll be very high school heavy.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, like, what is it? So I kind of want to bring up this point because I was just thinking of it right now. With Corona High School, how they have Seth Hernandez and also Billy Carlson, and kind of like separate. Now that we did the position players, I want to talk about it on the pitching side. Kind of like, what would you evaluate the prep arms and the college arms? Are there a big separation between them, or how do you feel about them in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's less in terms of high school arms this year that are, likable towards the kind of top 50 picks. I think really that'd be Seth Hernandez, who I really like. I think he's the best high school pitcher we've seen since Hunter Green. Um, and then Landon Harmon, Matthew Fisher. But those are, I mean, really about it. You could make an argument for Cruz Schoolcraft or Jack Bauer, but those are flawed arguments. And then kind of with the college pitching, there's just a lot of guys, right? There's always going to be a late round college arm. There's always going to be a handful of guys, kind of in that around 10 through 20 area from the college arm demographic who end up making the big leagues. There's top end talent. The I mean the big three lefties all kind of have a shot at 1-1. So I definitely think there's a little bit more to like from the college arms this class.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think I think there's definitely a lot of upside from the college arms, I would say. Like I don't know how
Mhm.
would you feel about this statement, but I kind of feel like a lot of them have good pitch ability. I don't feel like a lot of them throw extremely hard, at least for today's standards of the MLB. They're like in the 95 range, but like they don't feel like they're upper 90s to 100, a lot of them, in my opinion.
Uh, I mean, I would definitely say that they're not light on velo. I think this is the most college arms I've seen who are averaging 95 or higher.
Yeah,
So they're
definitely.
throwing hard. there's some velo in there for sure.
Definitely. I mean, so I kind of wanna walk through. Let's say it's July 13th. We're on day one of the draft. Um, I mean, let's kind of like let's use a cutoff point of pick seven, and I'm gonna use pick seven just because I'm a Marlins fan,
For sure.
and I'm always curious what they do. But it's kind of like within those top seven, within those lottery teams, I guess, if you will. Um, how do you foresee that playing out? Like, do you think a lot of them are gonna take teams that they feel, not teams, but players that they feel they can kind of mold it themselves, or are they just trying to look for best player available at the moment and fast track him and win now type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the best player today isn't always the best player tomorrow, right? So I think it's less about, at least, you can look at the Angels as a team who's probably, going to be, trying to get a guy who can impact the major league roster. But I think for, going for the other six teams, I think it'll just come back to which guy they really think has a chance to be the most productive over the long term. All right, whether that's a high school guy or a college guy.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, because like I was also wondering this in general. Like, I don't know if you perhaps in any of your things spoken to people that are part of teams or have any insider info, but like, does anyone really like stand out to teams like in general, like where they're like, I mean, I don't know, I think of like my Marlins, for example, if you want to use them as an example. Like, I mean, from what I've heard, it sounds like they like a lot of the prep players, and that's usually the route they've gone in the past. But does anyone really like stand out to these teams in general, where they're like multiple teams want that one player?
I think you can look at kind of the college arms, Jamie, Liam, and Cade, as being kind of those three guys who have suitors kind of across, the top 10, right? I don't think there's a team in the top 10 who wouldn't at least consider taking one of the three, right? Um, so those would be, I guess, kind of the guys who come to mind. But really, I think everybody's kind of on the same same kind of group of players, generally, at least kind of in the first round area.
Yeah. And do you think there's like anything per se now till the draft, even though it's 12 days, that can separate a player?
I would say no. I would say if they're separated, they're probably already kind of separated. But I'd say like draft meetings are kind of going on right now, just for teams. So as those kind of shake out, the board will probably change a little bit. As kind of people get together and hash it out.
Definitely. And so I kind of want to, because we've been talking, I guess, more about like the top end of the draft, first round type of thing. But I mean, I've been really interested because I feel like this draft is going to end up having, I mean, only time will tell, but I feel like it'll end up having a lot of depth. Like, I like certain guys like Gavin Truly from Oregon State. I think Jacob Morrison. I don't know if it's maybe the Coastal Carolina colors, but I've been saying he feels like a Mariners guy. They're good at developing pitching. So I just feel like if the Mariners grab someone like, Jacob Morrison, they can turn him into a good something interesting.
For sure.
Um but what do you feel like in that kind of range? Like maybe once you leave the first round and you enter like, I don't know, the second through fourth round, guys in that range. Is there anybody that stands out to you?
I mean, Cade Crossland is one who I really like. There's some parallels for me just in the evaluation to a guy like Alejandro Rosario, a couple years ago, who, I mean, it's kind of lower command, good athlete. There's some, off speed, things to like, secondary pitches to like, heavy fastball usage. I think Cade's a really good one. Brady Afton from UConn. He's probably not in the second through fourth round. He's probably kind of in that 5 through 10 range, if I had to guess. But he's one who's really interesting. Senior sign. Four really good shapes, four average or better shapes. Throws hard-ish up to 97, I believe. Um, Easy delivery, easy action. General feel for the strike zone. It's not, great command. You can make an argument it's probably below average command, but he's another one who I really like. I think Morrison's a good name as well. I wonder how hard he'll end up throwing. I think, Mariners, Guardians would probably make sense. And then you have guys like, Jack Anchor, who's another one, Jason Reitz kind of guys. So there's a few that I like.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of got this question on Twitter earlier, but what about like someone like Chase Laviolette, who I mean, at one point felt like he was kind of in that top 10 range at some point, and then
Mhm.
but I think he possesses a lot of swing and miss, is what I've seen.
Yep.
So, I mean, what do you view him now? Like, is he still in the first round conversation? I feel like it'd be odd to see him drop out of the first round.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of the same player he's always been, right? He's kind of been of that Trevor Larnach kind of mold, if that makes sense. I mean, he's always had, issues with the bat to ball skills. It kind of was more pronounced this year, which kind of ran some people off. But I mean, he's still a first rounder for me. I think he plays, really good center field defense. He's a big kid. A lot of, pull side barrels. So he'll hit for power.
Definitely. I mean, I think honestly, I think teams would just take him based on that power alone.
Definitely.
Yeah, it'll be something that factors in for them. And somebody who I honestly, I'll be honest, I didn't watch. I don't tend to watch a lot of college baseball during the regular season, but I try to pay attention. Keep myself updated. But once like I know playoffs are starting, I'll pay attention a little more. And I learned about one player from Coastal who was their catcher, Caden Bodai, and I honestly fell in love with the way he just plays, the way he catches. I felt like he's the kind of player that you draft, and if you didn't care about hitting, you put him on your major league roster tomorrow, and he commands any pitching staff. Is what I felt like. How do you feel about somebody like him in this draft?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit lower on him than most, right? I mean, it's a Sun Belt kid with who's light on power, and he makes a ton of contact, which is, I mean, you look at guys like Eric Brown, and that hasn't really worked, too well in the past. He's also not a big dude. I think he's a good catcher. I don't think he's quite as great of a catcher as some people think he is, right? Because we have to remember, like, framing metrics aren't really gonna, factor into the equation in a few years. So I'm kind of mostly concerned just about arm, and that type of thing. I think he's, maybe a tick above average, but I don't think he's like anything insane, kind of in that category. But I don't hate the player. I think he's probably fits in that top 50-ish range.
Definitely. I mean, I was just thinking about it right now that you were kind of, giving your thoughts and input. But I mean, what if a team like the Brewers, who are known for developing catchers, were to take him?
I think that would be a little bit rich at 20 for his taste or for my taste. But I mean that would, you possibly make sense. I mean I also have like some pause about taking catchers in the first round, kind of up in the draft because catchers like historically there's a lot of variance in
Yeah,
that demographic, right? You go out and you catch, right, which is very physically demanding. If you get on a cold streak with the bat, how does that kind of factor in, work itself out, right? That's a lot of variance. The aging curve is pretty sharp. Production isn't always kind of static, predictable. You look at a guy like Adley Rutschman, who was, I mean, a slam dunk 1-1 catcher. Go with guys like Kevin Pareda. So there's reasons to kind of be wary of college catching, which is kind of a discounting factor for me. But I mean, I see the vision with him for sure.
yeah. And also it just got me thinking too about like a team like the Red Sox, for example, who recently traded their top catcher in Kyle Teal to get, Crochet. And I've seen not anything concrete or anything, just the idea of them maybe selecting someone like Caden Bodai, or But my question to you would be, let's say in a hypothetical scenario, Ike Irish and Bodai are available to them at the same time, and they wanted to replace, I guess, their what they lost in Kyle Teal. Who would you take in that scenario?
I mean, I don't think Ike Irish is necessarily a catcher at the next level. I think he plays outfield. But I think I do like Ike Irish's bat at least a lot more than I like Caden Bodine's. There's definitely some kind of red flags on Ike Irish, right? The Cape data isn't great. There's a lot of variance in his launch profile. The distributions aren't that clean. In zone whiff is a little bit much. Uh, but I mean, he's a SEC performer, so that's got to count for something, right? I mean, left-handed bat.
Yeah, definitely. So, um, I do kind of want to shift it back a little bit towards that first round and top of the class. But if we can kind of go back to the idea that we're on draft night, and how you see it playing
Mhm.
out. I mean, what do you think, like, some of these teams, let's say within the top 10, if you could maybe pick out certain teams that you've been kind of interested in what they're doing, and give me an idea of, like, maybe say, I don't know, the Mariners might do this, or the Marlins might do this, or the Nationals this, like, just kind of an idea that you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess, just historically speaking, it would track the Marlins would be on, left-handed hitting high schoolers, right? That would make a lot of sense. I think if you go back and look, going back with Frankie, every year that he's kind of been in amateur scouting, the team he's been with has taken a left-handed hitting high schooler, I believe. Um, so that would make sense. That's, I mean, that's kind of easy to kind
Yeah,
of causation, right? Or causation's not correlation. Um, maybe I would assume that the Mariners would probably be on a guy like Jamie Arnold, maybe Ivar Cat. Um, I don't know exactly what the Angels would be doing. I'm guessing Liam Doyle. Um, Maybe Kate Anderson if he doesn't go 1-1. But for a guy like Ethan Holiday, I think it's pretty safe to assume he either goes 1 or 4. Let's see. I think JoJo Parker probably fits at number 10 with the White Sox. Um, I know he was in there for like a workout visit type deal a few weeks back. Um, let's see. I mean, that's really what comes to mind. Billy Carlson or Seth Hernandez, I would guess, with the Pirates would be safe to assume. Um, if not, they go. If not, if they don't both go before the pick 6.
yeah,
But that would kind of be my assumption for the Pirates.
definitely. Because, I mean, another thought that was just coming to my mind is, like, do any of these teams, I mean, maybe not that high in the draft, but, like, is there a possibility that any of these teams kind of factor in what they're drafting toward the trade deadline? Like, um, in 2023, for example, when the Marlins drafted Noble Myers and Thomas White, they ended up trading. They considered themselves buyers at the time, so they ended up trading Jake Eater for like major league players. Is there anything you see this year similar to that, or not really?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, a talent restocking thing. I think if you view yourself as a seller, it's just about getting upside into your system. Um, I think it's, you know, an easy kind of rule of thumb, just kind of for 40 man kind of matriculations and, just balancing your org, right? To kind of be aiming for kind of an even split between international, college, and prep players. So kind of just if you see maybe your kind of top end outflow being, college players. Maybe you kind of want to backfill that a little bit. But I think those would all kind of be secondary just to um, kind of maintaining your talent level, right?
Definitely, yeah, for sure. So I'm kind of gonna get into like some of the questions I received here.
Definitely.
But one of them, which comes from my mutual on Twitter, the Frill the Shark, he'll definitely be watching this.
Okay.
He asked me about, I believe you say his name, Tyreek Kemp, if you know, if that name rings a bell to
From
you.
Baylor?
I believe it's from Baylor. If he was
Mhm.
asking if you think he goes on day one, like, which I believe day one covers up to the second round.
Um, I would say probably not. He's, I mean, a smaller kid, senior sign, if I'm correct. So I would assume that he probably goes if he were to go. I haven't seen his data, but I do know the name. I would assume it would probably be somewhere kind of later in the draft.
Definitely. And then also another question I got from Sandy Jazz 69. Nice, by the way. He asked, uh, well, we kind of talked about it a little earlier, but he kind of asked about Jace Laviolette and how
Okay.
teams are evaluating him, and he's wondering why does he still project in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, he's got plus power and plus center field defense. I think that can make a player, right?
Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. I think, yeah, and we kind of talked about it a little earlier, so no need to dive too
Yes.
deep. And then also from Dom, aka Marlins Lab, he asked, and then I guess this would go specifically for you because you've actually done
Okay.
it, but how do you go about making a draft board? And
Mhm.
like, what's your philosophy and process that goes into it?
Yeah, for me, it kind of is very quantitative in nature. So I start kind of from um, I guess, model outputs, just in kind of figuring out which names are going to go on the board, right? So I'm just kind of looking for guys who would, qualify, if that makes sense. And then from there, I kind of go and just qualitatively kind of go through and pref them, if or pref, which is kind of just another way of saying rank. So I'll kind of evaluate them and rank them, and kind of just get my own grade. I kind of do that, and then I kind of cross check that kind of back with whatever I'm getting, just modeling athletic data, pitch shapes for pitchers, contact rates, quality of contact measures, kind of factor in, wood bat versus metal bat performance, and I kind of shake it out that way. But it's a lot of I guess a fluid approach, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself like maybe having a bias towards a player? Like you're like, I really like what I saw here, and then it's like, I don't know, anything that might cause you to rank him higher because of a bias of some sort?
Oh yeah, I mean that happens all the time, right? If you see one player, four times in person and you see another player zero times in person, that can kind of factor in and skew your eval a little bit. I mean, it bias is kind of in everything we do, right? We're human.
Yeah,
So I think kind of just accepting that and kind of going with it. I mean, you kind of got to suck it up, right? But yeah, I mean, bias kind of seeps in. Some of it I think is good to kind of be a little bit quote unquote biased towards kind of what you have, a higher degree of certainty in. I think that's a very kind of valid way of thinking about things, but also just kind of trying to, be open to new information sources and kind of just let your evaluation be fluid, is kind of an important piece of it.
definitely. And so I kind of want to start, rounding out this episode and getting towards the end here. But I do want to ask, and you can take however long you need on this portion, but if there's any names that you think people should absolutely know that are maybe not the top names, but are just names that people should absolutely know just going into the draft. It can be college side, it can be prep side, just names that maybe aren't as popular, but people need to know about.
Yeah, I think Michael Lombardi from Tulane is one. A lot of people kind of within baseball see him as a little bit of a Spencer Strider type of player. High carry fastball. There's some intriguing secondary traits. Good athlete. There's kind of a lot of room for optimization with him. He's a former two-way, so kind of sticking with the Braves. Kind of arm connections. There's a little bit of some Spencer Schwellenbach in there, just with kind of the, younger training age for a college pitcher. He's an interesting one. Cade Crossland, who we mentioned earlier, I really like him a lot. Let's see. Jaden Foskey. I see a lot of similarities kind of in how he does things to a guy like Bryce Eldridge, who, it's a geared to loft swing with high contact ability, and the power might not be plus right now. But I think he'll outperform kind of his top end EVs. So I think he'll be a really, really productive player as a pro. And he'll probably play right field if I had to guess. Good arm, caught for a while. So he's kind of made the jump this spring to play in the outfield. Um, but I mean, he had great contact rates on the circuit. A lot of hard hit balls. Um, let's see, Landon Harmon. He's another one who I really like. Prep arm, great athlete, up to 100. A lot of interesting secondary shapes. He's got a cutter gyro type of pitch. He's got a sweeper. He's got a changeup. Fastball is kind of cut ride to the nth degree, right? It's right, as I said, up to 100. But great athlete, 6'5", 190. A lot of things to like there. And
Yeah,
then kind of, I think I previously mentioned Brady Afton, but I really like
yeah,
him a lot too.
definitely. And I think I'll round it out with this, even though it's completely way too early to be asking this kind of question. But if you had to take a guess, if there was guys like, maybe, I'll phrase it like this: if there was guys like Justin LeBron or Ross Chalowski in this draft, do you think they'd be like clear cutting away favorites for 1-1 at the current moment?
I don't think clear cut in a way, but I think they'd definitely be very firmly in that conversation. Um, I think, just for me, it's very easy to kind of look at the college bats and feel much, better about taking them towards the top of the draft, right? Specifically, kind of shortstops, outfielders, those kinds of players. I mean, you look at a guy like Paul Skeens, and then you look at a guy like Jacob Wilson, and Paul Skeens is generational, and there's kind of some reason to say that you may rather have a guy like Jacob Wilson on your team right now, right? So, um, it's just kind of understanding that there's major league pitching kind of up and across the board, and kind of being willing to kind of just accept a quality college bat towards the top of the class, right? Because in baseball, it's I think very easy for the average fan to look at the top pick and be like, hey, he's just like a average big leaguer, and this player in the second round is so much better. Did the scouts miss? And the answer is really no, because it's really hard to find good big leaguers, productive big leaguers.
Definitely. And just kind of to round it off here, but you think like once this draft is over, the 2025 draft, do you think that would be like the early storyline, I guess, of 2026 draft? Like whether Chalowski or LeBron end up being 1-1?
I think next year's draft is going to be really interesting because there's a lot of players who could be 1-1 talents. I've seen just this week two guys, Grady Emerson, Jacob Lombard, who come to mind as probable 1-1 candidates. And then there's kind of a lot of other high schoolers, college guys who can kind of factor in. You look at a guy like Sawyer Stroh from TCU, maybe, or a guy like Tyler Spangler, or there's maybe 10 other names at this point who you could foreseeably kind of view to be kind of at that tier.
Definitely. So I think that'll round out this episode. I want to thank you again for
For sure.
joining me and being part of this.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and just talking the draft and just giving us a bunch of insight. I mean, even I learned a lot of new things, which is definitely what I
I
wanted.
appreciate it. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely I'll make sure to link all your info down below in the description of the video. Make sure to go follow him. And yeah, thank you once again, and make sure to subscribe and share this episode with everyone who's excited for the MLB draft. See you all next
Oh
time.
yeah. All right. Thanks, Vic.